And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up for ever and ever, and they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. And whosoever receiveth the mark of his name.
I always had an interest in vaccines to research everything about them, and also it made me suspicious about what was the motivation behind vaccines. So I attended a couple meetings that was of interest that in 2014, 2015. I'll start with, Dr. Craig Venter was the Human Genome Project. He was giving a speech at the World Congress meeting in Las Vegas, I think around 2014. And he was bringing up the idea of how we can modify people's genomes and how vaccines would be very useful in doing that.
Now, this was in the context of, like curing genetic diseases, or was this for another
Well,
he was talking about?
No, he actually brought up the idea of the designer babies first, of how we could make a better human, okay? So maybe we wanted to have a baby with blue eyes or a special muscular build or whatever you want, and they could do the designer babies, and it was pretty easy to do. And they found more simplified ways of doing this. But what if we could extrapolate this to whole populations of people? That's what he was bringing up. And he was saying that, of course, when you start manipulating the genome and you put something that is not from nature, you're making a synthetic part of the genome there. And he felt that since they were working so hard on their research and development, all these scientists and these companies, they should get credit for their work. So he's the one that brought up the idea of patenting and owning part of the genome, which this was horrifying for me to hear that we could even think about doing this on a human being. And he's the one, this is how I understood that with our highest court, that it was okay at the moment to still patent a part of a genome and own it. So he also said he had a vested interest in that, and that he had some lobbyists in the courts and with politics so that this would continue. Okay, so this gives you an idea of the motivations behind people. Is this really in the best interest of humanity and for the health of everybody? He also brought up.
Well, let me just interject something here, because there have been some really good research on this issue of patenting things that might be implanted in our body. So I would definitely encourage people to look at James Corbett. He has a great piece on this and goes into it in detail. But there's a few different ways this could play out. So one is if there's a device implanted in us that could be patented, and then we'd have patented device inside of our body. And that's similar to what you're talking about. If the gene, like they're putting a specific gene in us, like even the gene that they say is from the virus that they want to put in this vaccine, right, is a patented gene, eventually. And then because it's put in a certain kind of plasmid. And then lastly, even more importantly, that you can obtain a patent on a genetically modified organism. So some of the DNA vaccine strategies, and I'm sure this is a drop in the bucket compared to what Dr. Venter was talking about, will insert the gene into your nucleus. So that's like the definition of a genetically modified organism. So it's possible that even our entire body could be a patent, right? As a genetically modified organism. And it's really, really scary, because essentially it means that we would be under license agreements that could be negotiated without our knowledge, that we could be manipulated in any which way because we'd be property.
That is correct. And he also mentioned that since they were modifying the genome of organisms, they would put their names, because a genome can be read as a language, and you can convert that into a binary code as well. And so he said when they were modifying the genome, they would put their signature, their names, the scientists, into the genome, which this was horrifying for me to hear, because this is branding people and plants and animals. And I just this is wrong on every level.
It almost places them in the role of creator or God, right? They're saying that they're putting their signature on their creation of this person. It's really perverse.
And that's exactly what he said. He said, what is God? God creates. Well, we can create now. And those were his exact words to the audience.
And whosoever receiveth the mark of his name